Alright, so here's a short overview of one of our research studies using REDCap. This is the home page. It just displays basic information about the users and some statistics about how many records we have. The main stuff we changed that is interesting is going to be in the Designer tab on the left. This is all of our data collection instruments, which are basically just the different forms that we need a patient to look at, sign, or fill out. This system is built inside of a REDCap survey queue, which you can click here, and survey queues have to be enabled in the project setup page or project settings before you can do stuff like this, and whoever's in charge of the site's REDCap system, whoever has the administrative account has to enable this. But what this allows for is for you to import these different forms such as screening, which has inclusion exclusion on it, informed consent, and then whatever questionnaires that you need the patient to consent. You can import them in here, set them up, which I'll go over in just a second, and then you can start setting up when you send somebody the link, what form are they going to start with. Whatever is not activated is kind of the default form. So whenever people get my link, it's going to take them to the screening form since it is not activated and it's not set to auto start. Once they get to the screening form, it'll ask them some inclusion-exclusion questions. Based on those questions, if they're eligible for the study, and based on their age range, so that language is here, it'll route them either to our standard informed consent or the parental and assent forms if they're under the age of 18. So for the informed consent, it's looking at some basic logic. So it's saying that whenever our screening form is complete, and this logic becomes true. So age is set to 1, meaning that they're over the age of 18. And then for some of the inclusion-exclusion questions that I have, these are the tags that I set up. So one of them is a question about a platelet-rich plasma injection. One of them is referring to if they're a collegiate baseball player. And then one of them is seeing if they are a minor. If any of this has the correct flags, then they'll be routed to the normal consent form. However, down here, looking at the same screening form, if they are not of age, if they did not have, platelet-rich plasma, and if they're a minor, then they're routed to the parental and asset forms because they're a minor and we need their parent to sign off. And then based on the above, if they are passing inclusion-exclusion, if everybody consented as necessary, there's one extra question about surgery for this study. So if they had surgery, they have to go to questionnaire 1. If they didn't have surgery, then they have to go to questionnaire 2. And that's noted by this UCLR tab. So they'll get either one of these questionnaires, but the process is overall the same. And you can have this set up for any form. For more complicated logic setups, just automatic routing of documents whenever you send this link to patients. Now inside the forms, you can view it as a PDF, you can download it until you enable the study, and there's usually a button for enabling it. I can actually, I believe, disable it in the survey settings. If it's not enabled, then the patient can't see it even if you send them the link, it'll just be kind of disabled. But inside of these, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the edit button, you can see all the different fields that I added. So by default, you get a record ID. They can fill it out. It really doesn't matter because I'm having them list their full name here. So this is de-identified inside of the records review tab, which I can't show you, of course, but going down the list, these are our inclusion-exclusion for the study. You have to be at least 16, but if you are under the age of 18, then you have to be routed to a different consent form. And then here's general questions. To add a field, all you do is select the Add Field button, and then field type, and then depending on what the question is, just if you were setting up some type of online exam, you could select a text box, you could select a yes or no question, just changing the different answer fields. For basic questionnaires, that's all you do. If you wanted to do informed consent online, it's a little bit trickier. So you'll see here that I have a standard IRB approved informed consent. This was a PDF, but for REDCap, you have to export a PDF page by page into PNG or JPEG files. So these are all actually images. I'm going to hit the edit button so you can see that. Basically, you have to add a descriptive text box so that you can add image, video, audio, or file attachments, and you'll be brought to this page. The field label and action tag sections don't really matter. The only thing you want to do is designate a variable. REDCap is really big on variables, so if you're planning on using any type of logic or automatic documenting or signing, then you have to use variables. And each variable needs to have a unique name. It can't just be ICF. Each image that I import is going to have to be listed with a page number. And then down here, I didn't import a video, but I did attach the page 1 as a PNG. There's a little upload button here. And then you need to make sure that it's an inline image. If you attach it as a link, then the patient has to click the link to view each page, and it doesn't look like a standard free-flowing PDF. But after you place all your inline images in, then you can scroll through. They can't initial here. This was an error added by one of our coordinators. But, and these were as well. In updated forms, we have it to where we just took these off the PDF before we added them on. Because the way REDCap works is you can't annotate directly, but you can add virtual signature fields. So I would take any written signatures or initials off of your form before converting them into JPEGs or PNGs, and then upload it so that you don't have any confusion from different people about where the patient was supposed to sign, because I have gotten some feedback on that. Once you do that, you can add fields down here. So I added a text box for the patient to enter their first and last name, their initials. In the field section, there's actually a dedicated field for signatures. So they can draw it with their mouse or finger, and then the date. And there's a section in REDCap to where you can mandate what format the date is saved in if you wanted to match the industry standard. So text box, you would have to list a unique variable. Validation is where you can force the formatting. Required, yes or no. Of course, you would want all of these to be required. If you mark it as having an identifier, it's basically just a flag that lets people know that there is PHI contained within this form, and then you can align it and make notes. That's pretty much it for the informed consent. The logic is telling it, did they pass screening, and then putting them in the right one. For the questionnaires, all of these are essentially the same thing. They just change the different formats. So some of these are multiple choice, some of these are multiple checkboxes, yes or no, free response, etc. After everything is said and done, REDCap will automatically generate a zip copy of all the files completed. So if you have specified in the protocol that you're going to give each patient a copy of the informed consent, then REDCap automatically does that. It automatically lets you know when people have signed informed consent forms, and when you have new records in the study. So again, after you set up all of your forms like this, and you've published them and enabled them as a survey, as long as your administrator has approved the survey queue feature, then you can go ahead and set up your logic. Basically, again, the one that is going to be the default page when they click the link is the not activated. Everything else you set to auto start, activate, and then you just want to set your logic up so that the system knows what page comes next. All right. After that, you can go ahead and send out your link. So under Survey Distribution Tools, you can click that, and there's a shareable link. You can also add people individually by email list, which is here, and I have people in there, so I can't open it, and send out a recurring invitation, which is tracked in the invitation log. So this study is currently set to every Monday afternoon. It sends a predefined email from my personal or from my work email, and then at the bottom it includes this link and it thanks them for their participation. Once a patient has completed the survey, you can click the record status dashboard. Again, these contain PHI, so I can't click them. But if you wanted to view them, you would click the number. And then there's a very good tracking system here. So it tells you where exactly the patient how far they got in terms of the logic. So you can see everybody completed screening here. Some people didn't go forward after that because they didn't pass screening, so it did not allow them to consent. We did not have any accidental screen fails or anything like that generated by REDCap. If they passed, then you can see they completed some type of informed consent here. Some of them, after reading the full consent, decided not to complete the questionnaire. However, some of them did, and they were automatically routed to the correct questionnaire based on the logic set up for surgery or not surgery. Besides that, that's pretty much the main things you can use REDCap for in terms of obtaining electronic informed consent and questionnaire distribution. If you wanted to set up a project from scratch and add people as users so that coordinators can join in, all of that is handled under user rights, and I can't click it because I have a lot of team members on there. But essentially, you can create people's accounts if you are an administrator, and then you can add them to individual studies. So from the REDCap homepage, you can go to the settings tab, which will be somewhere over here in the left-hand corner. You can add people's name and emails. They'll go to activation email, and then you can click individual studies to configure user rights. So in there, you just type in their username and then give them permissions. And everything in here can be configured. You can allow certain people to only edit the surveys or have access to the records, but not be able to change settings. It depends on what you want. But everything like that is handled under user rights. So please email me back if you need any more input on how to set up the REDCap study or if you have any questions about our setup. Thanks.